Welcome to Paranormal Gumbo with your hosts, Angel and Aaron.
Welcome to Paranormal Gumbo, where we cover everything paranormal, mysterious, and spooky with a little side of humor.
A big side of humor.
I stand corrected. If you have any paranormal stories or any ideas for things that you would like us to cover, just send us an email at paranormalgumbo@gmail.com. You can also go to our paranormalgumbo.com website, and you can fill out a contact us form and just tell us whatever you'd like to tell us. We also have a Paranormal Gumbo Facebook site, and we're on Twitter. Let's talk about the latest paranormal news. There's some interesting stuff going down with the Navy right now, actually. They've had so many Navy pilots who have had experiences with some sort of UFOs, not saying necessarily aliens, but some sort of UFOs that they don't understand, that they are actually changing their reporting guidelines for those pilots to be able to report the UFOs. It's not information that they say they're going to share with us peons, but it would be used in the military to study what's going on. So just for them to say, hey, something's going on, we need to look into it more, that's pretty big. So I don't know, we'll see what happens with it. Maybe that's a step closer to actually finding out what's going on.
It might be. And here's something else. I mean, with the amount of people that are reporting UFOs now, I wonder if you could go back to some of these old pilots that never reported anything because they didn't want their career ruined.
Yes, there were so many that told their families in later years, or even when they came home from war, that, you know, they had seen strange things, but if they had told their superiors in the military, they would have gotten, goodness knows, probably dishonorably discharged and that type of thing. It was frowned upon. And that's kind of the way it's been with the U.S. Navy up until this point, is it was kind of, you know, hush hush, don't talk about it. Yes. So that's what's so interesting about that shift.
Yep. The times are changing, people. Hey, if you've experienced any kind of paranormal UFO activity, alien abduction, let us know. We would be more than happy to talk to you. I would love to speak with people about this.
Definitely, I would as well.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into the Calvin Parker interview now. We're going to go ahead and listen to a little bit of it, and then Angel and I will speak about it a little bit, so we'll be back in just a few moments.
And his book is actually called Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter. And you can actually get that on Amazon. We've got links to where you can purchase it on Amazon on our site.
The danger was over, so we decided to sit on the pier for just a minute and talk about this between ourselves. And we agreed that we would not tell nobody at this time, or mention it, or bring it up. Charlie says, we need to tell somebody. I said, we're not telling nobody because I didn't see nothing. I don't know what went on, Charlie. You might have seen something, but I didn't see nothing. Well, we need to tell somebody. I said, no, we don't. You can, I'm not. I wasn't there. Well, we started making our way back to the car. When we got to the car, I noticed the windows were shattered on the passenger side, just shattered in place. And somebody told me that the noise could have done it or something. I don't know what happened to it. But we opened the door, got in, and there was a brand new car, but it was hell to crank that day. I mean, we just wound on it. Finally got it cranked. We started going back home, and there was a store, and I forget the name of it. It might have been a little Magic Mart or something. But it was a store there. Charlie said, pull over. And I was wondering, you know, the stores was closed because they had blue laws in the 70s where at a certain time of the day they shut them down. So already all the stores was closed. You couldn't buy liquor, cigarettes, gas, or anything like that. And he said, there's a payphone here. Well, we struggled around and found a dime. I thought he was going to call home, but he called Keesler Air Force Base. And Keesler told him, we don't check on any of the cases like that anymore. We don't investigate any UFOs. Call your local sheriff department. So they called. He come back to the car. We dug under the seats, found another dime. He went back and called the sheriff department, and they told him to stay right there, because I just imagine going through their mind we'd been drinking to come up with a story like this. So we sat there. It wasn't just a few minutes. They showed up. Well, two of them got out and walked up on my side of the car. Wanted to see my ID, I guess because I was driving. They asked me if I'd been drinking. I said, no, I ain't been drinking. They said, well, get out of the car, stand on your right leg, bend your head back, jump up and down, touch your nose, and count backwards. I said, hell, man, I can't do that sober, much less if I've been drinking. I don't know why they asked me to do that when they could have just took me on in to give me I guess they wanted to give a sobriety test there. Because then they told me, well, y'all good, so go ahead and follow me in. So we followed them to the sheriff department, and that's when they said, first thing they did was give me a breathalyzer, and then they separated us. Charlie went into one room, I went into the other. They interrogated us. I don't know what they interrogated him or what he told them. I didn't want to tell them nothing. I just told them I didn't know nothing. And that's where I messed up, because then they got a tape recorder and they put in a separate room. They didn't tell us about it. Then they put us in the room together to see if we'd talk about how dumb they were for even coming out here and picking us up, I guess. But what they didn't realize when we was talking to each other, the fear came out in our voices. Our conversations led into what we had actually told them or what he was telling them, because I was still playing the quiet game. But then when they heard me talking, they come back in and said, we know better. We know that something happened. Then the big sheriff come and left. Well, I still didn't know about the tape recorder up until later on. They said, well, y'all go home and we want to see y'all tomorrow. So we loaded up in the car and we started driving home. Didn't say too much while going there. But I remember thinking, well, maybe we are contaminated with something, because I'd watched these old Gemini and Apollo missions, and when they come down, they would quarantine them from their family for 7 days or something. Well, I knew something had happened, and I figured that maybe we needed to be quarantined and not be around people, because as far as me, I didn't care what happened to me, but I didn't want to give whatever I had to anybody else. So I mentioned that to Charlie. He said, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it tomorrow. But when we got home, I went in my room. I was renting a room from him. And there was a gallon of bleach on the bathtub. And I got to thinking, Mama used to bathe us in bleach if we had something going wrong, get rid of poison ivy and stuff like that. And it always seemed to cure us for something. So I got that gallon of bleach. I took all my clothes off, put them in a paper bag, and I jumped in the tub and I poured that gallon of bleach over my head and I washed it in. Then I got out and took my clothes out to the dumpster and threw all them in a dumpster. Then come back in and went to bed. Well, needless to say, I didn't sleep a whole lot that night. But got up the next morning. Charlie and his wife, Blanche, was already up. Walked in there and said, you ready to go to work? I said, yeah. So we left going to work, and I remember stopping at Wayne Lee's and going to get something to eat there, but ended up we didn't get nothing. But when we got to work, I noticed there was a lot of cars there, so we went on to a workstation, and I remember them calling us in from where we was working, told us to come to the office. I said, now I wonder what all this is about. They might have heard something. So we got to the office. They said, look, fellas, we're going to have to, we can't conduct business. Our phones are ringing off the hook. Y'all can't go work in the field because the man will be asking you. And I said, well, what would they ask us? You know, I was just playing dumb. I just want to see what they knew. The news media had found out somehow, and this is where Charlie and I had a falling out. I thought maybe Charlie had told them something, and I hated him for that. But actually, he didn't. Back in the 70s, everybody was nosy, so they carried scanners around. That's the best thing they could do. They had party lines and scanners. And these people listened to scanners day and night. And the police dispatch and the fire department would go over them. So I'm figuring later on, after thinking about it, that's probably what happened. And then people don't realize this, as younger kids don't. They weren't cell phones or anything. So, but you had a party line in your house, and it could be 6 or 7 people on it. You had a certain ring, and then you would answer your ring. And when you picked your phone up to listen to see who's calling and to talk, everybody in the world picked their phone up. You hear the phones click, 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 and listen in because people was nosy. But anyhow, they called us in, and they said, we have an attorney, Joe Camingo. And if y'all would talk to him and tell him, he'll work up a press release. Y'all won't have to deal with it. So Flamingo worked up a press release, and I remember mentioning to him, well, you know, I'm kind of worried about having some kind of bacterial infection or radiation. He said, I'll take care of that. So he made arrangements to take us to the Singing River Hospital. We had a detective, they drove us there. The detective drove us to the hospital, and they did blood work, they did a little exam. Now, whether they knew what they was talking about or not, though, I don't know. They said we cleared. And then they said we're going to check for radiation. So they drove us to Keesler. The patrolman did. He drove right through the gates. They didn't even slow him down or stop him. Took us back, and then he started getting nervous because they was six or seven men up there with hazmat suits on. And I said, well, you know, if we are exposed, it's probably going to kill you too. So the detective and all started getting a little bit nervous then. And they got us out, and I could see the relief after they checked us, and they pulled their suits off and said everything's clear. And they said, they want to talk to you in the back. I said, oh, okay, I'm tired of talking, but let's go. Well, they led us down a hall, and it was all kind of government officials. It was the local mayor and the police departments back, police chiefs and all back there, along with the military. And I thought, this can't be too good. I better tell them something because they're going to really stress out if I don't. So they asked us questions, and I told them just as honest as what I could about what went on and all. And they said, y'all can go. I mean, they was just as nice about it and all. So they got us in a car. We walked back to the car, and after we got to the car and he was headed back, he said, there's somebody who wants to see y'all in the morning. I'm going to take you to your car, y'all go home, but y'all got to show up at the shipyard in the morning. I said, well, okay. So we did. We went home at night, tried to sleep a little, still couldn't. Got back the next morning, and Dr. John Allen Hynek, who at one time who was over Project Blue Book, and Dr. Harder, had came down on their own dime. I mean, the government didn't fly them down or nothing. They wanted to come because they heard about it. Well, he, I won't say interrogate, that's not the right word. He questioned us and interviewed us there. Dr. Harder gave us a physical exam, and that's when they found the puncture marks and all on my own. And he tried to hypnotize me. Well, I couldn't be hypnotized at the time, or he said I couldn't. And then Hynek interviewed us, wanted to go out to the site where it happened, and we went out. And he was like me, he was wondering why they didn't treat it like a crime scene and all, but they hadn't. But anyhow, his bottom line before he left, his conclusion was, these guys are telling the truth. believe that they really experienced this or saw something. If they're acting, they should be in Hollywood because they're damn good actors. And that was the conclusion from him. Well, he left, and him and Harder did. Well, I still hadn't talked to my family or nothing about none of this. So I figured I needed to get back to Laurel. So I got in my car, drove back to Laurel, and to this day, none of my family or none of my friends or nobody has really asked me what had happened up until the book came out. And then that's when I started writing the book.
It's interesting that Kiesler, he mentioned Kiesler, they pretty much turned him away, or turned Mr. Hickson away when he called.
Said we don't investigate UFOs, which is kind of weird. Yeah,
which is really weird since they're the Air Force. So I don't, I try not to get too caught up in conspiracy theories, but it's hard for me to understand how a government agency, especially during that time, we had the Cold War going on, would completely ignore the fact that somebody said that they were abducted and had this, there was this flying craft and that kind of thing, because if nothing else, you would think that, especially after they passed polygraph tests and the sheriff believed them, that they would have, at least thought along the lines of, well, is it the Soviets? Are they doing some kind of testing or something like that?
Not only that, but I mean, with where they're at, right next to Ingalls Shipbuilding, where they're building Navy ships, submarines, you've got this thing that nobody knows what it is, and you've got a military force that can investigate it. Hey, send a jet or something out, send a plane out, see if they can find something.
Yeah.
This mysterious object that's flying around this Navy shipyard.
Right.
That's the weirdest thing to me, which is, you kind of brought it up about the whole conspiracy thing. Maybe they knew what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Maybe they knew
it makes you think
exactly what was happening.
I cannot personally think of another plausible reason that they would have completely ignored this.
Well, maybe they knew what it was because it was a military exercise.
Could have been. We talked to him about that. And as a matter of fact, when we get to the secret tapes, that's one of the things that he asked Charles Hickson, do you think it was the government? Charles Hickson said no, he didn't think it was the government. But when we talked to Mr. Parker and we had our interview, he said he still hasn't ruled out that possibility.
Yeah, because
so it could be.
Yeah, you've got the Air Force that refuses to investigate or didn't want to investigate until the next day, when pretty much are like, hey, these boys may have been introduced to radiation, and they're like, okay, well, we'll test them. Then we'll do a brief interview, and then that's it. You've also got the Navy right there. The Navy's got the second largest Air Force in the world.
Right.
So maybe it was some Navy experiment. And the robots, I'm doing little air quotes here, were some suit that they were testing out.
Yeah.
We don't know this.
There's even been stories, or let me rephrase that, there's even been theories that maybe it was some sort of hallucinogen that somebody had put in the air or something like that. But the problem is they both saw the same things. Yeah. So I don't see how that would work. I'm not going to say it's not possible, because going back to quantum physics and that kind of, we don't know what's possible, but unlikely. I would say it's unlikely. But one thing that's interesting too, you talk about the Navy. I think it was about a week before this. It might have been a couple of weeks before this abduction, but there was a craft actually underwater.
The Coast Guard saw.
It was in the Gulf of Mexico, not far from where this happened. There was basically a family of fishermen out on the boat doing their thing, fishing, and they saw this orange, amberish, I guess, amber colored is how they described it. This amber was floating. It would, from the report I read, it would kind of zoom off a little bit and then stop, and zoom off a little bit in another area and stop. So they started following it because they were like, what is this? Well, several times they got right up on it and they would hit it with the oar, and it would just zoom off to another area. So finally they called the Coast Guard. Well, this is where it gets aggravating, because the Coast Guard did come out. They saw it. There are documents. I read the documents, and we'll talk more about that. But the Coast Guard, instead of taking pictures, instead of doing anything scientific, they took their oar and hit it themselves, and it zoomed off to never be seen again.
They're like, oh yeah, not our problem anymore.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because it's in the Coast Guard documents that they saw it, they described it, but why the heck would they just hit it with an oar, just like somebody else has already done, not take pictures,
and
nothing?
I love this. I mean, what if, they'd started a friggin' intergalactic war because they smacked the shit out of this thing with their oar? If there are any aliens out there listening to this, contact us in a peaceful way. Find someone that's not going to hit you with an oar.
We won't hit you with an oar.
Things have changed since 1973, but I'm pretty sure there's still some people out there that are like, holy shit, an alien, let me smack the hell out of it.
And I will say too, they're also the same night that Mr. Parker and Mr. Hickson were abducted, there was a lady in Pascagoula who was right there on the Pascagoula River, right there where they were, and she actually saw a craft under the water that fit the same description of the craft that they hit with the oar. So that's pretty interesting. Is this some kind of a vehicle that goes underwater and in the air? I don't know, but it's really interesting.
If it's going through space, it's going to be airtight, it's going to be watertight. I don't see why it wouldn't be able to go underneath the water as well. The only thing that I can see is, what kind of propulsion are they using? But even then, if they're friggin' traveling through space, holy shit, they're going to have propulsion that we don't understand.
Right.
So pretty much to me, if you can travel in space, you can travel underwater.
If you have any paranormal stories or any ideas for things that you would like us to cover, just send us an email at paranormalgumbo@gmail.com. You can also go to our paranormalgumbo.com website, and you can fill out a contact us form and just tell us whatever you'd like to tell us. We also have a Paranormal Gumbo Facebook site, and we're on Twitter.
If you guys have any questions for us, or even for Mr. Calvin Parker or Miss Wynette, let us know, and we'll try to get that to them and get an answer for you guys.
That's about all the time we have this week. Make sure to join us next Friday for more of our interview with Mr. Calvin Parker and Mrs. Wynette Parker. We'd like to give a special thanks to the Pascagoula Library and McNarby Gaming in Gotcha, Mississippi. We recorded parts of the show in both locations. Check out McNarby Gaming online at mcnarbygaming.com. That's MACNARB gaming.com.